Alright. So, as the title says, I am literally just going to be learning guitar. So I guess follow me on my journey. I should use a different scene actually. But I gotta have my camera set up, so like, I just use this. I don't know if I'm gonna be using my guitar. Maybe not yet. Maybe not on this first one. But whatever. Right, so yeah, we are literally just going to learn guitar. Can't do anything about this. I can't. Fuck it. Whatever, don't care. Alright, let's start. Hold on, let's just take a look. Alright, so this is the Justin Guitar website, justinguitar.com. I literally just signed up. I heard about this from like other people, they say like this is the great starting point. Justin uh have made have tried and made it like very fun and all and stuff. I haven't touched it yet, so I am literally just gonna like go through these and just learn, you know. That's basically the idea, and then I'm just literally just gonna uh share my experiences along the way. So I watched this intro video. I'm not gonna watch it again though. But it's basically just saying like, this guy's been teaching for a long time and have tried to make it, I've experimented with a lot of like teaching techniques or whatever, trying to make it as easy as possible and as accessible as possible, which is probably the most clear here, the truest a promise that he kept. This is literally free. Literally gave nothing. So yeah. Just go through, yeah, just go through here a little bit. You'll see like he mentions those. And there's a bit of a, you know, like extra supplements and stuff. And there's the grade system, which is just like, like school grade, the start at like the fucking uh to start like first grade, second grade, third grade, and so on, so forth. I'm literally gonna start from the very bottom, just so that I don't miss anything. Again, I'm just gonna go at my own pace. Most of these, I'm probably gonna skip like the early ones because I am like an amateur-ish, so I probably knew a little bit. So like before you begin here, I'm probably gonna like just skim through or whatever, or not. I would just like go through, really. But like, these I'll take an in-depth look, and then these, or the thing is like I probably knew some of these, but this one, right, is just gonna help me with more or whatever. No, like it's like I don't want to like miss anything at all. So here, the grade system again. So it feels like you're in class, but optimized for online, right? So in first grade, it's basically just teaching you what a fucking guitar is. That's cool. So at grade one, I probably like do it pretty quick. But then again, some of these like basic theory and shit, I probably need some time on those. There's a lot, by the way. There's a lot. There's 15 hours of content in just here. It's an hour of content. It's 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a lot. It's just hour length content, which is very good. But yeah. When you get into grade 2, you can play most of the songs. Yeah, this is like where you start like learning the advanced stuff a little bit. Like the small advanced stuff, it's like the common shit that people do. And in the third grade, it's like actually understanding what these does, I guess. I don't know. Different finger style, explore chord shapes. Yeah. I feel like this is all you need if you want to just impress someone, right? Then you have the other shit. But where's the roadmap? Hold on. So yeah, this is the first shit. This is like what I'm gonna go through. Like you said, like the first three is like the most beginner shit. I feel like this is all you need if you just want to impress someone. Now this is my ultimate goal is to get here and understand all of it. I think this is for people that like guitar itself, right? This is like what people that like really just want to like understand what the possibilities a guitar can fuck dude, I can't speak English. The possibilities that guitar can offer, that's the fucking word I'm looking for. God damn it. But yeah, basically we're just gonna go through these and then yeah, see how it goes. I'm maybe just gonna like be a student. And from here also you can judge if I'm a good student or not, which is kind of cool, I guess. This is all levels, so this is like just supplement stuff. This is like the extra stuff that you want to like you know have a deep dive into, like the ear training essentials. So the tuning your guitar, different kind of tuning, the maintenance, technique, more in-depth look at techniques, I guess, scales and shit. I think this is all just for like, but when you get to like here, when it's like here, you can have a lot of reference here or something like that. But yeah, fuck it, enough talking. I'll just like dive straight into this. Module 0. I think like I'll try and finish module 0 today because I think like it'll be like pretty easy because I know most of the stuff, right? So yeah, I'll just go through these today, and then these next ones I probably like take it a little bit more seriously and like split it into halves if I have to. Go at my own pace. The idea is to not force myself to like learn, because I know for a fact that I'll get pissed if I force myself to just learn. So instead of just forcing, maybe I'll just do like one video a day if I don't feel like it, and shit like that, basically. But yeah, that's fine. Let's fucking start. Let's talk way too much already. Let's just start from the very start. Let's go. Yeah, Justin. Yeah. All right. So what do I do? Just press start module. Hold on. What's this?
Hey, how you doing? Justin here. Welcome to Module 0. Before you begin, in this
Okay.
module, we're going to learn a whole bunch of really important things that are going to help you get off to a great start. pretty important things like how to tune your guitar. Do remember that there's a free tuner in my Lessons and Songs app as well. We're also going to talk about how to hold your guitar, how to hold your pick, how you're going to strum with your fingers if you don't want to use a pick, and important stuff like how to read chord boxes. Now, even if you feel like you know a lot of this stuff already, I would encourage you just to have a quick watch through and make sure you're not missing
Yeah,
anything important. Remember,
exactly
these
what
early
I
stages
thought.
are where we're building our
Exactly what I
foundation. We want
said.
it to be super duper solid. We won't be doing any playing in this module, so if you're really keen to get cracking, you could skip some of this stuff, move on to the next module, and then come back and revisit it
Because,
when you've got
you
a
know,
little bit of time.
again,
Really hope you enjoy it.
it's like, you know, you you really don't want to like miss anything. I mean, you're already here, like you might as well just like go through really like, you know, if you want to do it, if you want to like invest your time into it, then do it. Like invest in it, like, you know, don't make it like don't have it wasted with like things. I don't know what to say. Like, I guess just like learn it anyways. So like, you know, a way to like just humble yourself, I guess. All right, let's fucking go. Let's use best tuner. Maybe don't. There's chapters in these too. Yeah, damn.
Hey, how you doing? Justin here to
My
show
God,
you how to get your
there's
guitar
so
in
much.
tune. Now, if you're already confident that your guitar's in tune, you know exactly all about all this, you know how to use your tuner, then feel free to move on to the next lesson in my beginner's course. For those of you who are not really sure, a bit new to this, or want a little refresher, there are quite a few different ways to tune your guitar. When I grew up, it was pitch pipes. You had this, like a little kind of a harmonica with 6 things that you could blow in. It gave you the note, and you had to tune your guitar up. Electronic tuners made that a hell of a lot easier, which you can still buy, like standalone little, you know, guitar tuners. You can also use apps. Most of the time, I tend to either use an app or a clip-on tuner. Now, clip-on tuners literally just clip onto the headstock of your guitar. You don't need to be plugged in. You don't need any sort of
Yep.
amplification. And they give you all of the information
I mean,
that
you
you
did say
need to
you're
tune
not
your
gonna do
guitar. They're
anything. I
relatively
might
cheap.
clean
So
my guitar
actually,
real
what I
quick.
recommend is using a clip-on tuner. So I've got 2 clip-on tuners here to demonstrate today. The first one is the TC Electronic Polytune, which can actually tune all 6 strings at the same time. I'll show you which one is out of tune. It's a very, very accurate tuner. It's the one that I use nearly all the time. I think it's great. A little bit on the expensive side maybe for a beginner, but you will last a long time with this tuner. You're probably not going to need another tuner anytime soon. Also very, very small, compact. I like that sort of stuff. I would normally have them around the back of the guitar, by the way, not the front. I've just stuck them at the front here to make it easier for me to film it. As well as that tuner, I went and bought myself what I think is probably the most common budget tuner. It's called a Snark. Very, very common tuner. Reasonably accurate, easy to use, all of that sort of stuff. So what I thought I'd do is just take you through actually what they look like and how to use the tuners. Now, most commonly, when you get a guitar, especially if it's straight out of the box, the strings will all be detuned a bit. So I'm just going to knock my strings varying amounts out of tune here so we can work on getting them back in tune. So let's start by tuning the thinnest string here. So if I'm going to play that first of all, now that's saying it's the note D. The thinnest string needs to be the note E. Now E is after D, so we have to go up. Most times you're going to find that you tune up to a note, particularly if you've got a new guitar. The strings will have gone flat over time.
Yep.
So now I'm just looking here. On this one, on the Snark, I'm looking for the blue line at the top with a little, it's got a little bit of a green edge to it as well. On this one, I want the little center thing to be green, not going onto the red, and this line in the middle to be relatively stable. Be difficult to get it exactly stable, I think, but there we go. That's got the E string in tune. Now, if we look at the second string, this needs to be the note B. At the moment, it's the note A. So we just keep going up. It's showing A sharp. Now, here we go. We're on a B. But you can still see it needs to go up. There we go. And we're accurately on
Ear
the B.
training's where I
There we
probably
go.
spend my
I
most
think
time
that's
on.
pretty good for the B.
Or like
Okay, this one is showing
Guitar
the F
techniques.
sharp.
I'll spend a lot more on
As far
guitar
to go here.
techniques than ear training. But I definitely want to spend a lot more time in ear training.
There we go. That's pretty good.
Some will
That
learn
was the
songs
note
by ear.
G, which is the third thinner
Right.
string.
I
Fourth
want to be
string.
able to have
This
that
one showing a C sharp.
ability.
Just tuning it up.
But at the same time, it's like,
You always want to tune up to a note
if I
too,
just
not
learn
down.
technique, I
So
can
if
just
I went
like,
too far, oh, oops, it's got to be D. I would actually go lower
learn songs with
and then back
tabs.
up. I think getting into the habit of
It'd be
always
like a lot
tuning up to a
easier.
note is a really good
Just learn
idea.
instantly. But like,
There we go. This one, oh, this one went right down. That's an F sharp. This one needs to be an A, the fifth string. Keep going up here to the note A. Here we go. You don't want to do it too fast, see, or you'll miss the right note. There we go. There's an A. That's pretty good. That's a D, D sharp. We're looking for E again. The two outside strings on the guitar are both E's.
oh, I have my tremolo bar.
So there
I
are a
have my
couple of common
whammy
problems
bar.
that beginners face when they're learning to tune their guitar. Using a tuner only really works when the guitar's roughly in tune. If it's really, really out of tune, like you had to replace a string, or you got a guitar out of your friend's loft and it's been there for a couple of years or whatever and it's really out, you're going to have to do a little bit of listening first, okay? You're going to have to put a string on. If you don't know how to change your strings, there's lessons on that on the website as well. There'll be a link to that in the description as well. But you're going to have to listen and put get the string attached correctly and listen. And again, in the Tune Your Guitar series on the website, there's loads of different ways of tuning a guitar, not just using a tuner. So you want to, for that, in that circumstance, if the strings are really way out, then you want to use your ear as well, perhaps before a tuner, and just get them roughly in tune. You're going to have to listen to roughly how high or low the notes are of each individual string. Another common problem beginners face is finding it difficult to play just one string at a time. Nearly all tuners want to hear just one string at a time when you're doing your tuning. So if you've never used a pick before, it's a whole new thing. You go to try and pick this fourth string here. It's going to be fairly difficult. I know, because I've tried it left-handed, right? It's difficult to get just one string ringing out. The best solution? To do away with the pick altogether and just use your thumb. So let's say you want to tune this fifth string. You're going to rest your thumb on the fifth string there, and then you're going to strum, like push down with the thumb and leave the thumb resting on the string beneath it. Okay, technically this is called a rest stroke in classical guitar, but it doesn't really matter. It'll just help it keep it nice and quiet and give you a nice kind of the correct technique if you think about resting the thumb on the string below. Before you go to the next string, just mute it.
And
there you go.
Keep my guitar now. Probably not.
It doesn't really matter whether you start with a thicker string or you start with a thinner string. But if your guitar was very out of tune and you had to tune them all up or down a lot, then you might find you need to tune your guitar twice, because actually the neck moves backwards and forwards a little bit relative to the tension of the string. So if you've changed the tension of the strings considerably,
see, I don't know this. What's this about?
And there you go, onto the next string.
What do you mean?
It doesn't really matter whether you start with a thicker string or you start with a thinner string. But if your guitar was very out of tune and you had to tune them all up or down a lot, then you might find you need to tune your guitar twice, because actually the neck moves backwards and forwards a little bit relative to the tension of the string. So if you've changed the tension of the strings considerably, the neck might have moved just a little bit. Usually a second tune will sort that out, no problem. If you're at all concerned about any of this stuff, I would urge you to go and check out my module on how to tune the guitar, because there's loads of different approaches that you can use. You can use a pedal, you can use apps, you can use a harmonica, you could tune to a piano, you can tune the guitar to itself if you're at a campfire and you've got nothing to tune to and no tuner. Okay, there are lots of different ways of doing it, and what you want to do is learn a couple of ways and then settle on the one that suits you best.
Nice. Nice. Let's just fucking go. So this is posture.
Hi, how you doing? Justin here.
I do have a bit of problem with posture though. Because like first of all, my chair is fucking shit. That's one thing, and then the whole like my right arm anchoring on my guitar just feels off. So I don't know how to get that right.
Here today we're going to talk about posture and how to hold your guitar. Now, if you're right-handed or if you're left-handed learning to play guitar right-handed, which is also an option, I would recommend that you put your guitar on your right leg. Whether you're playing acoustic or electric, it doesn't really matter. It's possible to put the guitar on your left leg like this. It's kind of more of a classical approach. And there are some minor advantages to do with the access on the on the higher frets. But to be honest, as a beginner, you're not going to really reap the benefits of that kind of stuff. So I really recommend, much better off putting the guitar on you're right-handed. You're going to put it on your right leg, okay? And this arm will help hold the guitar in place. Now, if you've got an acoustic guitar, you'll probably find that your arm actually sits on the top of the guitar. If you're playing an electric guitar, your forearm sits on the kind of the front, the top and the front of the guitar. Now, it wants to grip a little bit on that. What you don't want is the weight of your whole arm on your shoulder all the time, because it'll make your shoulder real sore. So you want it to be, your arm to be resting somewhere. If you're wearing a long sleeve shirt or a jumper, you'll find that you won't get much grip with the forearm. Definitely, if I play with a long sleeve shirt or a jumper, my shoulder gets a little bit sore from having to hold the weight of my arm all the time. So probably you want to at least roll your sleeves up or wear a t-shirt, whatever, and try and get used to the feeling of this arm being relaxed. Okay, being relaxed is going to be a theme that we revisit quite often with the guitar, because a lot of the things, technical things, really rely on you being relaxed as possible, as much as you can. Now, the holding of this arm and the curvature of the bottom part of the guitar should help you make the guitar feel quite solid. This kind of guitar's got a bit of a cutaway in the back there, which probably sits into your body as well, into your torso. What you don't want is this hand to be holding up the guitar at all. Okay, so the guitar is held by your arm and that cutaway resting on your leg, or a strap. If you wanted to use a strap, you could use a strap too. But this part of the guitar is not supported by this hand. You're not going to be able to play your chords and change chords and all of that while you're supporting the guitar neck. Okay, so what you want to do is just experiment a little bit. Put the guitar on the right leg, put your arm down, see if you can, get used to the feeling of the guitar and making sure that this hand isn't supporting that neck. Now, there's a few things that beginners do all of the time, and I'm guilty of it myself. One thing that you don't want to do is to lean the guitar over. The reason that you don't want to lean the guitar over is because it also means that you're going to bring your wrist around like this, and you're going to end up with getting probably quite a sore wrist. All the tendons in your fingers run through your wrist, can also cause some problems with carpal tunnel syndrome if you over practiced. Unlikely for beginners to get that kind of thing, but doing this would be a real, that's a really bad idea. You definitely don't want to be leaning the guitar over. In order to look at your fingers though, which is something you're going to want to do, you're probably going to find yourself doing this a lot. It's always something I've said to beginner guitar players: don't lean over like that. You're going to give yourself back problems and neck problems. Don't do it.
Yeah, see,
until I started learning myself left-handed, and I watch myself back, and I'm doing it all the time.
I have a problem with.
And if I try and sit up, I find it really difficult. So what I would recommend is to try not to do this as much as possible, like craning your head forward to look at your fingers. You're going to do it to a certain extent because you need to see where your fingers are going. You need to make sure they're in the right places, on the right strings, all of that sort of stuff. Just try to keep yourself in as good a posture, like an upright posture, as you can. Okay, try and keep your back straight, sit up. For me, I've been playing guitar a long time, and I know that it's really important if you're playing a lot of guitar to keep your posture good, or you will end up with a sore neck or back problems. So try and keep yourself upright. Try and avoid what I call craning like this, but you're probably going to find you do that a little bit, no matter how much I tell you, because it's kind of necessary to see where your fingers are going. This guitar malarkey, especially the first lessons, is not super easy. So be forgiving with yourself. Don't worry about it if you're doing it too much, but just bear in mind that you probably want to be sitting up as straight as you can for your practice sessions.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But usually when I want to look at my fingers, I will lean my guitar back a little bit and I will crane a little bit. Like I slanted the guitar just enough to just see like the like all the strings from an angle and kind of just judge from that. But when I like first like in the earliest like when I was like 10 or something or like 12 when I got my first guitar, my actual first guitar. Yeah, I did crane a lot, I guess. And then, you learn. And yeah, that's definitely helpful. Try to relax the right hand. That part. It's good. That part needs to get down. Yeah, just like that. You guys can see it right now. I don't have the camera on, but like, I'm like taking a look at like how it makes it. Yes, this makes sense. You know what I do hate though? Gloss finish. Like you get prints all the time. And I'm like, dude, I don't wanna like get prints. But you get it. Whatever, that I can just wipe it off. Yeah, let's continue. Let's see what this is about.
Hey, how you doing? Justin here. In this lesson, I'm going to tell you about how to avoid so much finger pain by using correct finger placement. Now, where you put your
Yeah.
finger within a fret changes how much pressure you need to apply with that finger in order to get a good
It's
sounding
probably
note.
the close
And
it
as a
fret
beginner
thing.
guitar player, the
Most
first few
probably.
weeks particularly, it hurts, right? You're pressing your nice, soft finger skin down on a thin piece of metal. That's just an unpleasant thing to do. First few weeks when I was learning left-handed, I couldn't believe how much it hurt. I've played guitar for so long that I'd completely forgotten. It was one of the most revealing things I found about learning to play left-handed was it just really hurt. The first couple of weeks was just really painful. And I know what I'm
That's
doing,
very
and I
nice
know all
of
of
him
this
to
finger
just learn
placement stuff too. So it's really, really important that you get your fingers in
to
the
like
best
learn
possible place.
again.
And I'm going to show you a little
That's a
exercise
refreshing
now that I
thing though,
want
being
you
able
to
to like
actually do.
learn
Play
again.
along with me so that you can experience it. And by experiencing it, I'm fairly sure that you'll be pretty careful about your finger placement as we move forward on this course, particularly when we're learning our first chords. So I want you to put your first finger in the 5th fret. Okay, so just counting up, there's the first place. That's the 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret. You'll almost certainly have a dot in that fret. And I want you to put it on the 3rd string. So starting with the thinner string, that's string 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to start by putting the finger right up next to the 5th fret, the 5th piece of metal, okay, closest to your body. Now what I want you to do is I want you to use your thumb just to play that string, that one note. And I want you to see how lightly you can press with your finger to still get a good sounding note. So if I just gradually lift off my finger, now it's too little and I'm not getting the note. Pressing a little bit more, there we go. Now that's I'm not really pressing very hard at all. You can hear if I go slightly looser, it gets all buzzy and stuff, okay? So I'm just experiencing how much pressure, how little pressure actually I need to do to press down to get that note sounding good. Now I want you to move your first finger to the back of the fret. So it's still within that zone, but it's kind of at the back end. And I want you to try and do the same thing. Wow, it's like 10 times
Damn.
harder. I have to press to get that note ringing good. You can probably see my fingers going a little bit
Yeah.
white there. Okay, compared to here, where it's really softly pressing down the string, and here, that same amount, I don't even get the note out. Now,
Wow.
the reason this is so important is that every time you play a chord and I ask you to put your finger in a particular fret, you want to try and get it up as close to the fret as you can. That's the position where you're going to use the least amount of pressure to get a good note. In these early stages on the guitar, you want good notes, but you also don't want much finger pain. So trying to get your finger positioned exactly in the right place will mean that you press less hard, and therefore you'll have less pain in your fingers. You'll be able to do more practice.
Nice.
You'll enjoy the whole experience more. So this finger placement is a really, really big deal.
Makes sense. Let's go straight into the next one. This one's
Hey,
pretty
how you doing,
self-explanatory
Justin?
as
Here
well.
today we're going to check out how to read a chord diagram, something you're going to find very helpful on your guitar journey, I can assure you. So let's start by having a look at a chord diagram for a D chord, which is the first chord we're going to learn today. So let's get one of those up. There we go.
Damn.
Now, you'll see that there are
Clean
6
editing.
vertical lines, and these represent the 6 strings on the guitar. Okay, I often think, like, if I'm holding my guitar up like this, you'll see that we've got the thicker string on this side and the thinner string on the other side of the chord box. Now, some chord boxes have a thicker line for the thicker string and a thinner line for the thinner string. That's not always the case. Sometimes the lines are going to be exactly the same thickness all the time. Now, the horizontal lines represent the frets on the guitar. Okay, so you'll often see here, these are the frets going along like this. Now, at the top of the guitar, particularly for beginners, you're going to see this thing. This is called the nut of the guitar. Now, this is either represented by a different colored line, sometimes usually like a black line or a darker line. Sometimes it's a double line. Sometimes there's nothing really that indicates that it's the nut at all. So a little bit, it depends on which diagrams that you see. I tend to favor the thick black line to represent the nut in the diagrams that you'll see on my website. On the neck diagram, you're going to see some dots, and these represent where to put your fingers. You'll very commonly see a number next to these dots or inside the dots, and these tell you which fingers are going to press down where on the guitar neck. Now, we don't tend to use the thumb very much on the guitar. If you do use it later on, you're going to see it's notated with a T for thumb. Surprise. Finger 1 is our index finger. Finger 2 is your driving finger. Finger 3 is your ring finger. And finger 4 is your pinky. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and T for thumb, but you're not going to worry about using the thumb in those early beginner stages for sure. If you've ever learned piano before, make sure that you don't get confused, because with piano, they called thumb the first finger. Confusingly, it's not a finger, it's a thumb. It's T. So, at the top of the diagram, you'll also see some X's and some zeros. Now, an X at the top of a string means that you won't play that string. Now, you'll notice here with the D chord, we've got 2 X's on the thickest 2 strings, so we're not going to play the thickest 2 strings at all. And then we've got a 0, which will mean that we play that string open with that. And playing a string open means that we're going to play the string with no fingers on it. Now, on the D chord, then you'll see that we've got our first finger down in the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, the 3rd finger down in the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and the 2nd finger down in the 2nd fret of the thinner string. Don't worry about that. We're going to go through that in a whole lot more detail in just a second. But that's the basic idea of learning to read a chord diagram, and we're going to be using those right through this course.
Oh, wow, that's it. Yeah, I mean, I already knew that. So, like, yeah. Again, right, it's just skimming through these. Alright, let's continue. We're almost done.
Hey, how you doing? Justin here. Today we're going to talk a bit about guitar
Alright, this one I
picks.
have problems
You don't
with.
have to start your guitar journey by using a guitar pick. When I was learning left-handed, I found that the first couple of weeks I just wasn't into using a pick. I just found it, frankly, a little bit difficult to pick the right strings, and I was much more worried about getting my chords
Yeah,
right. But using
that's
a
the
pick
thing.
is a really good idea, and particularly when we get into strumming patterns and playing songs, using a pick really can make things sound a little bit better. So I want to take you through the general idea of what picks are, how to hold them, all that sort of stuff. Now, for a beginner guitar player, I would recommend that you use the absolute thinnest pick that you can find. The one that I use is made by Jim Dunlop. It's called USA Nylon 0.46 millimeters, and it's like a piece of paper. You can totally fold it in half. It's really, really super
Wow,
flexible,
it's so
very,
thin.
very easy to use. It doesn't get tangled up in the strings. You can hold it nice and tightly, and it doesn't, it's got a lot of click in it, which is actually kind of a nice thing, especially if you're playing acoustic guitar. But it's really forgiving, and if you're a beginner guitar player, I can't recommend strongly enough going to your local music store and getting the thinnest pick that they have as being the first pick that you use for this sort of stuff. They're a little bit less accurate when you're picking out one note at a time. So for that reason, while you're at the store getting your super thinnest pick, I would recommend that you get one or two other picks as well. Now, I also use this one, a Jim Dunlop USA Nylon again, 0.60 millimeters, which is still quite flexible. You can't really fold it in half. It's still a very, very flexible pick. It's a nylon one. It's still got a little bit of click, but not as clicky as the white one. Which the clickiness gives you a kind of a percussive effect while you play, which can be a really nice thing, particularly on an acoustic guitar. The good thing about having the slightly thicker pick is that it's a little easier to control. Like when you're doing your chord practice, you strum, pick out the notes individually one at a time. It's a little easier to control the tip of the pick if you're going to use a pick for that kind of thing. So the pick that I use most of the time, particularly on acoustic guitar, it's definitely the thickest pick I would recommend for beginners, is this orange Tortex kind of pick. This is a Justin Guitar branded one, but there's lots of different varieties of this type of material around. It's kind of flexible. You can bend it a little bit, but it's not like the others. It's a lot stiffer than the
None
other
of
two picks
these
that I've
sound
talked
like
about.
the
This
others.
one's really good for picking out individual notes if I'm doing the chord practice, or any sort of riffs or anything like that. Using a thicker pick is definitely a good idea, but
Yeah,
as a beginner guitar player, I think you would find this pick very, very difficult for strumming. Okay, for
yeah.
learning to strum, you definitely want to be going for your as thin a pick as you can possibly find. When I'm playing for real, most of the time I'm using this called a blue chip pick, so ridiculously expensive thing, and these don't move at all. Like there's absolutely no
I have one
flexibility
of
in this pick
those.
whatsoever. It's absolutely solid. When I'm playing with this, I can hold it really, really lightly. I really like the sound of it. It's a fantastic pick. It's also like $40 for a guitar pick, which would be crazy for a beginner. When you get a really expensive pick, you don't lose them as much as one thing that I've found. But you're much better off as a beginner starting just with these, your regular super thin picks. But get a few, okay? Try out different materials because everybody likes a different pick. I would recommend that you go really super thin as a beginner, but what color and what brand and what material is something that you can make a personal choice with. I do recommend buying a bunch at the store. They're not very expensive, so go buy 10 different really thin picks and experiment a little bit and see which ones you like the feel of the most. One thing that is really important is how you hold the pick, and ideally you want the pick kind of coming out of the side of your thumb, okay? So you don't want to be holding it like this where it's
Ah,
coming out of the
ha,
end of your thumb. You want it out of the side of your
dumbass.
thumb. And this is really important
Doesn't
when it comes
know.
to strumming. So ideally it wants to sit kind of like it's coming out of your first finger, but out of the side of your thumb. So you can see there, it's the first finger is positioned kind of pointing straight down, but when we look around
Okay.
this side, it's coming out of the side of your thumb. Now, you might find as you progress as a guitar player that you want a bit less coming out of the side of the thumb, but as a beginner you probably want like a good centimeter coming out. It doesn't really matter at this stage how much is coming out of the side of your thumb, but I would give it probably that amount. It'll be the same even if you're using these other bigger picks or thicker picks. It should be coming out of the side of your thumb like that. It's still pointing. So if you get with your first finger, put the pick on your first finger and then wrap your thumb around, you can see the first finger is just pointing down almost at the end of the pick, but it's still coming out of the side of your thumb. It is perfectly okay to decide not to use a guitar pick for the first part of your beginner journey. However, learning to strum with a pick is a lot easier than learning to strum with your fingers. Now, it doesn't work for everyone. There are some fantastic guitar players that don't use a guitar pick at all. Mark Knopfler, Jeff Beck, loads of others. But in the early stages, I'd recommend that you have a go at learning with a guitar pick and learning to strum. You can always decide to ditch it later. But definitely for the beginner stages, when you start strumming a lot, maybe not the first lesson, maybe not the second, but definitely by the third lesson, I would recommend that you're exploring using a pick when you play.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, I can do both. You know, I fucking played classical guitar for like a few months. So, you know.
Hey, how you doing? Justin here. Today we're going to be talking about strumming without a pick. It's something I get asked about a whole lot. It's kind of a big subject, really. For most beginners, I think they tend to turn to it because they can't use a pick. And I don't think that's the kind of the right option. If you're struggling to use a pick, I think you want to try using a very thin pick and struggle with it a little bit longer, because I think for real beginners, it's a bit easier and better in the long term to be able to strum with a pick. However, when I'm strumming the guitar, more than 50% of the time I choose to strum without a pick. Now, there's a lot more options when you choose to strum without a pick, as well as in the ways that you do it. When you strum with a pick, most people tend to hold the pick the same way, they move the arm the same way. There's kind of a lot more, it's not limited, but there seems to be one way that works for most people most of the time. Whereas when you take that away and you're using your hand, there's a lot more options as to how you angle your fingers on the strings, whether you use your thumb or your finger or a combination of those things. How much you move your arm, how much you move your thumb or your fingers independently of the arm. There's a lot more options. And I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of prefer it, because you can get a lot more tonal variations. There's a bit more to think about. So this video is for beginners to explore playing without a pick, if you don't want to play without a pick for whatever reason, and for more intermediate and advanced guitar players to get some ideas on ways of exploring playing without a pick. So it's kind of multiple levels here, and hopefully beginners will find it kind of interesting, and it'll give you hopefully the right idea of finding a way that works well for you, because I think that's one of the key things here, is finding the way that works best for you. So I'm going to start by talking about using your thumb. Now, when you're strumming with your thumb, if you just strum down with your thumb, you get the kind of the fleshy part of the thumb, quite obviously, right? It's quite a round sound compared to if I use a pick. It's kind of louder and a bit brighter. So if I use my thumb, it's a little bit rounder, a little bit fuller. I'm not sure that the brightness is sometimes good when you're recording, but not all the time, so I don't think that that's necessarily an advantage. It's just a bit different. When you do an up strum, if you're just going to use your thumb, there's a couple of things, couple of options and things that you need to be aware of, depending on how you angle your hand. So if you keep your thumb kind of the palm flat with the guitar when you use your thumb, it can kind of hook up under the strings and get caught and get a little bit uncomfortable. So it's worth realizing that when you strum up, you want the thumb to be a little bit more kind of facing, it needs to be at an angle where it's not hooking. So you need to explore a bit how that works and how that feels with your thumb, so that it's not hooking under the strings, that the angle of your thumb isn't going to cause it to get trapped and go all kind of weird when you're strumming up with the thumb.
That hurts.
So that's the first thing, is just to think about it. Now generally, I think rather than the thumb kind of pointing up like that, it wants to be kind of think that way a little bit for the up strum. Okay, just a little bit, doesn't have to be a lot. So that's the first thing to think about, is just be aware when you're strumming with your thumb, how is it angled against the strings, and is it going to hook in? Is either the bit of the flesh where it meets the nail can hook in, or the whole angle of the thumb could kind of throw you in? I mean, you shouldn't be like that. You want to keep your wrist nice and close to the strings, I think, for the thumb thing. But again, there's some different options I'll talk about in a second. So that's the first thing just to be aware of, is trying to find a way that it doesn't hook into the strings. Now, because you've got a nail on the top of your thumb, it's possible to get a fleshy sound on the down and a naily sound on the up, which is obviously brighter. So flesh, bright, fresh. Now, That feels
Damn
a
it.
little bit weird for me like that. I'm having to consciously kind of drag my nail on the strings. I find that if I keep my hand a little flatter, that I can still get the fleshy part. It's kind of this little, the fleshy part underneath my thumb that's doing the strum, not the nail like that, the fleshy part. Now, because generally you don't probably want the up strum to be bright and the down strums to be muted like this. It just sounds a little bit kind of wonky to my ear, I think to most people probably. So if you're going to strum with just your thumb, I'd recommend just mainly working on that fleshy part and trying to get it so it's even like that. See, there's not really a big accent there on the up strums. With the nail I can do it, but it sounds a bit, makes it sound a little bit wonky. So I'd recommend just thinking about the flesh. Now, when it comes to the motion of the arm there, you can use, just keeping all your fingers kind of nice and open and relaxed, you can move your whole arm just like you would if you were doing strumming with a plectrum. But you could also, there are some guys that kind of put their fingers on the actual guitar and just strum with the thumb motion itself. Now, neither of those ones is particularly more valid than the other one. It's just what feels comfortable for you. There's no way that you should feel one way is superior other than what's working for the song and what's working for the person playing. And I think this is where it gets into slightly more complicated for beginners, because I think for a beginner it's a bit easier to know what's right. And when you're using a pick, as I said, there tends to be more one way to do it. So there's the right way of doing it, mostly. Of course, it's not quite that black and white, but there's mostly the right way to do it. And then ways that are maybe not so good. But with this fingers thing, there's a few more options, and therefore it can get a little bit more complicated, and beginners might feel a little bit, well, I'm not sure I'm doing it right. And the test, I guess, to see if you're doing it right for you is if it feels nice to you, if it sounds nice. Because that's the two most important things. It needs to sound nice to you and to other people, and it wants to feel nice and comfortable and relaxed. You don't want it to feel all complicated and difficult. That's not the point. It should feel comfortable. So you need to explore a little bit. First of all, the angle of your thumb, how you're going to play, whether you want it to be all fleshy or fleshy and nail. Unlikely you're going to want that, but you might do. And then think about whether you want to try and keep the whole arm moving, or whether you just want to think about using your thumb, or a mixture. So maybe your arm moves a little bit and your thumb's moving as well. It's not one or the other. There's combinations here that you can explore, and you shouldn't feel like you have to do one or the other. Okay?
Adapt.
So that'll be playing with the thumb. It's one of my favourite, personally. I like playing with the thumb a lot, particularly with the fleshy thing if I'm doing a little ballad or something that's a bit, mellower. And it feels, I like the feeling of the strings on the flesh of my fingers as well. I like that. It's nice. Strumming with a pick, of course, is something I do a lot as well, and there's definite advantages to that, the crispness and the brightness, and particularly if you're playing with a band, it can be a big advantage. But there's lots of other advantage here, with the fingers thing as well, which we're going to get into now. So that's talking about the thumb on its own. Now, the other option is quite a common one, is using your first finger on its own. Now, if you're going to strum with your first finger, if you strum down, you're most likely to use the nail part of your first finger. And then on the up pick, you tend to use the fleshy part of the finger. So you get nail, flesh, nail, flesh.
Well, the way I do it, I use both nail parts.
Now, that's kind of more musical.
I use the thumbnail
to have the
for
nail
upstroke
on the
and
1,
the
2, 3, and the 4, and the fleshy part on the end. So that would be normally 1,
maybe you'll
and
mention
2,
that in a bit.
and 3, and 4, if you were strumming on every beat. Now, if you're going to do that, you're going to find with the up strum again, you need to be aware of the position so that your finger doesn't kind of hook into the strings, right? So it needs to be kind of pointing up. So down and then up. It's going to be, pointing at the ground for the upstroke, and then you're going to curl your finger a little bit for the down. It's kind of, if I try and slow it right down. Now this approach, doing it like this with my first finger, like this, I'm not tending to make a big motion with my arm. I can do. I'm going to talk about another option for that in a sec. But the finger strummy sort of thing, it's very much kind of up and down, and it's nail on the way down and finger on the way up. Now, if you don't want that difference in dynamic between the nail and the finger, You can also use the flesh of your first finger. So this way you're keeping your hand a lot flatter. Instead of it this way, up and down this way, you think of it a bit more that way. Now this is very soft and delicate, so I would only ever use this as kind of a ballady kind of thing. It's lost all of the top end, it's not very bright. It's soft, it's hard to get like a big dynamic range, like the range between how loud and how soft you can be. But it's quite nice and delicate as well, so there might be times where that kind of thing Now, see, I still want to, occasionally, I want to be hitting the nail to get it a little bit more crunchy, but definitely there have been occasions where I've been using mainly the little fleshy, using the finger pointy thing. Now, the other option that's very common for just playing with fingers is to hold your finger together like you're holding a pick. So you pretend that you're holding a pick, but the pick becomes your first finger. Okay, so that way it's quite a nice one again for beginners. If you're playing or you dropped your pick, you're used to the technique, you should practice a little bit, just putting your fingers together like you're holding a pick.
Yeah,
now, straight away
I do that
I'm more
sometimes.
into moving my arm like I would when I'm playing with a pick. Okay, so pivoting from the elbow, trying to move the whole forearm up and down together. Okay, so it's much more, it feels like more of a strum if I go into just holding my first finger and my thumb together like it's a pick. It's not actually any different to just using your first finger, because you're not using your thumb, but there's something about gripping it together. It makes it a little bit more solid, it gives it a little bit more volume. Again, the things that you want to be aware of is just, particularly for the up strum, making sure that you're not hooking into the string. So that'll just be experimenting with the angle of your first finger. You don't want it pointing kind of up into the strings. You want it like pointing directly in, or even a little bit kind of first finger pointing slightly toward the ground to avoid that kind of getting hooked up there. So all of these things are all a little bit different. There's not a right or a wrong. You can use your thumb by itself. You can use the thumb and then a bit of the nail on the up strums, or just the flesh of the thumb. You can use just your first finger. You can have it going up and down like that. You can strum your whole hand and use the fleshy pad of the first finger. You can hold your thumb and your first finger together. But there's even more options than that, right? So that's just a starting point. Another really, really common one is to use your thumb on the bass note, so usually on beat 1 and beat 3, and then use your first finger for doing a little down and up strum, so you have this 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So thumb, down, up with the first finger, thumb, up, down. Thumb, down, up with the first finger, thumb, up, down with the first finger. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. For example, there's lots of different patterns that you could use, but this is just one. There's infinite number of patterns that you can get into if you start exploring that as an option. But that again is a really, really common kind of starting point, the idea of having the bass note with a nice round, fleshy thumb sound, and then that down strum with the first finger where you're using the pick. You know, it's called playing on the backbeat, which is the beat 2 and 4, when they're accented a little bit. This 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's emulating the snare drum from a drummer, so you get that do ga do ga do 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2. So having that 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's a really, really nice little option, something that, again, you don't have to. You would likely pick a little harder on beats 2 and 4 if you were playing with a pick, but if you're playing with your fingers, you think about ways of dealing with that. So you're using the thumb on the 1 and 3 and the down hit with the first finger on beats 2 and 4 is quite a nice little option. Now, last thing I want to talk about is the mixing of all of that together, and that's probably one of the things that I like most about playing with fingers as opposed to a pick, is this being able to mix up the strummy part with the fingerstyle part. You know, one of my favorite guitar players in the world is Neil Young, and he's an expert at doing that. The way he combines little melody elements within the strumming, it's kind of like strumming and fingerstyle, and you can get a bit percussive and all of that sort of stuff all at the same time. It's not for beginners. I wouldn't recommend beginners jump into trying to do this because it's way more complicated. But just to give you a kind of a taste of what's going on, the idea would be along the lines of what I was talking about before, where you'd have this bass note playing on beat 1 and 3, little strum in between.
Damn. He's showing off, dude. Look at this guy. God damn.
So you get into a kind of a
Gotta
bit where
calm down,
you kind of
dude.
do finger style within the strumming and keep the strumming going at the same time. That's the longer term goal, I think, if you're going to pursue the finger styly, finger strumming, is to be able to incorporate those things if you feel you need to. Now, more is not always better. Sometimes it's better just to keep the strumming real simple. It depends on what the song needs, not what you fancy doing. Okay, that's a really important thing to realize, is that you should be playing for the song, not just for your, to show off what techniques that you've got. So always kind of bear that in mind. What's the song that you're playing? How does it feel good? Is it a ballad? Is it a up-tempo thing? How should it feel? What's the best way to deliver a particular piece? So to summarize, for beginners, I would recommend, if you don't want to use a pick for whatever reason, you get into using your thumb, the fleshy part of your thumb, and just get into using a little bit of arm motion, a little bit of thumb. Try and get used to making sure that the thumb doesn't catch on anything. So just that, thinking about the angle, just take it slowly and see if you can notice if something's going wrong. If you're getting one of the strums is too loud, or you're getting a bit of nail, or it's just poking out funny, or for whatever reason it doesn't feel right. Try and become an observer of yourself rather than trying to concentrate on getting it right. Try and watch yourself do it as an impartial observer, just out of curiosity, and then kind of try to make the mistake. Because then if you're watching like that as an observer and you do make the mistake, you've got a good chance of figuring out what went wrong. And if you can figure out what's gone wrong, you've got a way of fixing it. But remember that with this fingerstyle thing, there's not so many rules. I don't really get into this idea that there's one way to do it and it's the right way, and this guy says that you should do this and another guy says you should do that. I don't really think that's right for fingerstyle. I've seen a lot of different amazing artists and amazing musicians play all kinds of different ways, and I think that's a good thing, to be able to explore and find your own way, your own path in the musical journey, because that's where you'll find yourself and your most enjoyment and your expression. No, that's getting a bit arty-farty for beginners. You just want to learn to strum, right? So if you're that guy, keep it simple. If you're a more advanced guitar player, try exploring all of these different options. Try exploring different fingers, different ways of doing it. Of course, we're not getting into the full-on, percussive finger style options, because when we get into that, there's like 100,000 different ways of doing it. But this should give kind of beginners and intermediate guitar players a taste of the different things that they might want to explore if they don't want to use a pick. I really hope you found this lesson very helpful, and if you did, really appreciate you subscribing to my channel. So hit that subscribe button. Remember, there's lots of additional notes over on the website as well. There'll be a link in the description to go and check that out. I'll see you for plenty more very soon. You take care of yourselves. Thanks. Bye-bye.
That's very informative. I like that. Next one is the next module. So the D chord and the A chord. We're gonna learn about anchor fingers, a bit of exercise, which is good. Strumming, how to strum correct one. Maybe this one I need to learn. Finger pain. The 2-chord song. Yes. So this is how we'll continue. Next time I'll do the stream. Hopefully it wouldn't take too long. But yeah. That's about it for today.